A very good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I extend a very warm welcome to everyone on the panel, and I welcome you all to the panel discussion on cybersecurity. So, along with other fellow students present here, we are extremely fortunate to get the opportunity to interact with this highly experienced and prestigious panel we have today. So, on behalf of an IIT University, I would like to welcome our prestigious panel members. So, we are lucky to have three members on board with us today from Tata Advanced Systems. Mr. Arga Bose, Head Cybersecurity and Risk Management. Mr. Arga holds over 22 years of experience and has worked with some of the biggest firms across the globe,
Just a
including,
correction, 26 years, 26
okay,
plus years.
26 years of experience, and has worked with some of the biggest firms across the globe, including HCL, Wipro, and Nokia. Mr. Arun Kumar, Head, Manager Security Operations. Mr. Arun has led the information security vertical of the Indian Air Force as a Deputy Director and holds over 15 years of experience in the field. Uh, we welcome you both. We also have Mr. Pradeep Saluja, General Manager, Cybersecurity Practice. Mr. Pradeep is a cybersecurity professional with 20 plus years of experience in technology sales, product specialist sales, and business development. I would also like to welcome Professor Bezwara, prestigious academia, and Mr. Rajat Rai, a young cybersecurity professional from PwC, who also happens to be an alumni of an IIT University. So, Professor Bezwara and Mr. Rajat Rai would be representing an IIT University on the panel. So we are so happy to have all of you among us and really looking forward to the interaction. So, with
Absolutely.
no further ado, to set the premise of the discussion we'll be having today, a very common and a very general question that a lot of students raised for today's session was regarding the data rates being extremely subsidized lately by a lot of telecom companies. So now, with this, definitely a lot of people are equipped with internet and will be exchanging humongous amount of data over the vast ocean of insecure internet. So the main question here is that is India cyber aware enough or prepared enough for such a situation? And with your expertise, can you throw light on how our country should be combating this situation? So I request the panelists from Tata Advanced Systems to uh, uh, really enlighten us about this a little.
Sure. Okay. So let me take the first dig at it, and then subsequently, I know my eminent fellow, you know, company team members would definitely add on. So, you know, data with the expense of connectivity being established today to the last mile and the remotest possible person through mobile connectivities and to some extent broadband connectivities that is coming into the tier 2 tier 3 kind of cities as well. So there's a huge expanse that has happened where people have access to data on the fly. uh, People have started to use mobile phones. Let's also assume the fact that we have good amount of good percentage of people who are in the remotest part of the in the country, and there's a huge amount of possibility that has come across by the exposure of data that they have got, either farmers or be the laborers or people who are manufacturing, small time manufacturers also are able to kind of utilize those connectivities to be able to market their solutions or be able to communicate across to their to the counterparts or the larger market in itself in a much better way. So that has definitely been a very big positive with respect to what has happened in the past few, uh, say, years in this country, and to kind of accelerate that in the last one year through the COVID situation, where everything is kind of gone to a standstill and people have started to move out and get more digital in that process. So that in a positive way, India has seen a huge digital upward movement because of that COVID situation. I know, unfortunately, we lost quite a lot of lives as well. But no, but there's been a positive side of that as well. But I mean, to answer your question, is India cyber aware? The answer would be no. I mean, yes, we are getting to a stage where things are moving. There's an upward trend to it. But I mean, as I said before, the focus right now is not at the educated class or the people who are in the cities and people who have been born and brought up in the process of having access to internet and having access to the digital media. There are a lot of people who are in the villages and the places where they did not have access and now they do have access. But end of the day, they are kind of not secure security aware per se, right? So definitely there's a gap, and that gap needs to be kind of controlled very quickly. Now, one of the important things that the government has done is the introduction of the personal data security, personal data protection bill that is been tabled in the parliament, PDPB that we call, which is going to be kind of replacing the IT Act 2043A, and basically uh, that gives the right of personal information and what can be done with that personal information. Now, a lot of people have started to share. A lot of people have gone, they have been compromised. A lot of people have lost a lot of amount of, information, data, and a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
But the government has started to look at that and have seen the requirement for a data privacy bill that was expected, and now it is good that now we have now kind of got to a stage where it has been finally discussed and kind of closed. So yes, there is a lot things to be done, but I think there are processes that have been put into place, and things have started to kind of shape up.
Okay. So, thank you so much
Exactly.
for your input on that. Professor Bezvara, would you like to add an academic perspective to the same question, uh, to whether we are cyber aware in the coming years? How are we going to combat that?
So first thing is, when it comes to security, there is no academic or industry perspective. It's all about protecting information or protecting your data or privacy, right? So coming to your question, the point is what Mr. Agas said is correct, that we are not ready at a certain extent. For instance, I'll give you the thing is, normally we are not so protective of our privacy. Unlike the Western countries, which are very, where people are very concerned about their individual privacy. As Indians, we have a tendency of, only revealing a lot of our personal and information on social media, or even we don't mind sharing copies of our Aadhaar card or anything like that from, with anyone. So, and this is something that if we talk about so we are actually very vulnerable in the for social engineering kind of attacks. Okay, because if you link up your social data with, if you link up your personal information with online security for for generating your passwords or for creating your own identities, then yeah, India is in a pretty bad situation, because we generally are not very protective of these kind of information. When it comes to the digital infrastructure as such, the parameters of security have been set by, they are all the same anywhere. You want to protect your password, you want to protect your Google password, you want to log into Gmail securely. The standards are the same anywhere, whether you're in the US or in India. It is still SSL. You still have to go through the same process. So many, that is up to the companies with which you are dealing with. If you are logging to a particular site, that particular company should provide this information. So there may be certain issues in the way the PKI, the public key infrastructure is managed in India, and the way certificates are issued. But otherwise, we are pretty much on par with the world on that. But we are definitely vulnerable on the social engineering side of things. So our systems, we don't, I'll come to the systems level security part of things where we, where a typical Indian user is not so keen on patching up his, machine because he doesn't want to restart the machine, and you don't want to update software because you feel that what it doesn't hurt you, you don't have anything of value to, for people to steal from you. So all these, this little, what we say, the way they see way of doing things can hurt in the security side when you bring them into the security domain of things. So this is where we are actually most vulnerable. Our social behavior is actually something that can be a big minus.
All right. So could you meanwhile also check your audio once again, because your voice was cracking a little bit. It'll help us
Okay,
ahead
should
in
I
the
turn off
session.
my video? It will actually improve the thing better.
I
If I
guess
turn
so.
off my video, it improve. Does it?
Thank you so
No?
much. So I think
No, it is not. Yeah.
we'll check back on it later on. So, talking along this, I mean, moving along the same lines and talking about advancements in the particular vertical that we're discussing, uh, recently we've also seen that by 2021, most of the companies say that they will be completely shifting to cloud. So, how is this really affecting the kind of models we have in cybersecurity, and will this also somewhere impact the company structure or develop new roles or teams? So, I would like to actually ask for both perspectives on this. Uh, Panelists from Tata Advanced Systems as well as Mr. Rajat from PwC.
Pradeep, Arun, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'll take that. So cloud is something which is very, very hot right now. So everyone is talking about cloud. I hope I'm audible.
You are.
Yes,
You
yes,
are.
sir. You
So
completely audible.
I mean, today, as we spoke about the cyber piece, which is becoming very relevant globally, and most of the businesses are going through the digital transformation journey, and they are spending their uh, businesses now where they were not doing anything business outside their parameter. Now they want to expand in terms of the boundaries, in terms of the reach of the people, and where internet is helping them, do their business very well. Uh, and because of that, I think the entire infrastructure is moving to cloud. Cloud is playing a vital role in terms of growing the business. And at the same time, the cloud is also exposing the infrastructure which was never exposed to the sensitive information, the sensitive applications. Users are outside the so-called traditional parameter defense. So users, and now the COVID has added to everything. People are working from businesses are more worried about protecting their data, which has moved to cloud. Uh, their core business applications are in the cloud. The users are holding multiple devices. Uh, you don't know the user who's trying to access the application is the same user who's authorized to access that. So there are, I mean, the attack surface has increased. Cyber criminals have got, uh, I mean, more surface to do the attacks and steal sensitive data and monetize that. There's a lot of corporate data which is now we are seeing in the dark web. Uh, I mean, so that is where the risk is very high, and the organizations are gearing up. You and all of us, I think, as a newcomers who are entering cybersecurity, career, I see a huge potential for them. Cloud definitely is one of the areas where somehow they will have to get into and get expertise on that, because that's the high demanding skilled area where there's a lot of talent gap. and industry is trying to fulfill that. So that, and I think if you all keep reading news about the research which is being done by Gartner or Forrester, uh, they're inventing the new terms. You must have heard about zero trust. You must have heard about the SASE term, which is coined by Gartner. But the core concept which is coming out is that you don't trust anyone in this scenario where information is out on cloud, or it is a hybrid network, wherever the data is lying, wherever the application is, wherever the user is coming and trying to access the data from different devices. Some devices are totally untrusted. How do you make sure that you always verify the authenticity of the user, authenticity of the device? You always put certain layers of controls, so to make sure that your, the hybrid infrastructure is secured.
I want to quickly add, few points to it. Well, much has been already said and briefed by Pradeep. What I want to, quickly point out is that, we talk of cloud and, all that fancy stuff in jargons. Cloud is actually somebody else's computer, like which professor said that, at one time we were not able to, we are not interested to update our own operating system. And now we want to trust the other guy, whether he does it religiously or not. That is one point that I want to make here. And the other point that, when this moves to the cloud and the way it has been organized there, whether it is a shared model, whether it is a dedicated model or a hybrid model, the policies and governance, doesn't change from sitting at your side or their side. So if you're not being, very strict about your, cyber governance per se in the organization, you will have to be, doubly sure on the governance with which the cloud service provider handles it. And that's, actually what Pradeep mentioned. Your boundary has now extended from your own perimeter to that person's perimeter, and you have got that particular space in his infrastructure, their infrastructure, which you are actually trusting them to maintain for yourself. And now you decide what you want to keep there, your confidential data, your sensitive data, or your employees' personal data. So that's a decision, conscious decision that we all have to take. Having said all of this, the way I see and I've read about the future technologies being researched and worked upon, one of them being fog computing, and then there's cloudlets which sit very close to the tower that you have close to your house.
Mm-hmm.
And this situation will only it will become more pervasive when you have less of compute power in the device at your hand and more of compute power at the cloud. Case in point, 5G and IoT. I mean, I leave it as a food for thought for a lot of people to dwell upon the topic and understand what kind of computing power and capability are there in future devices which need in any which ways cloud transformation. That will be my submission.
Mr. Rajat, would you like to?
Yeah. So I think Pradeep and Arun sir have absolutely nailed it by giving the right perspective over there. So there are very few things that I can add. So if you want me to talk about it, I would talk about it from two perspectives. One is the organization's perspective, and the other is for the people who are trying to enter into the area of cybersecurity right now, when there is a transition going on from the on-prem model to somebody who's moving, or rather the organizations who are moving to the cloud for various reasons, including the cost benefits and the less of operational issues that they have to deal with when the servers are sitting on the cloud. So from the organization's perspective, I think it has kind of reduced the burden of operations to a certain bit. For example, the way you used to manage patch deployment on your on-prem infrastructure is different from how you would manage it on the cloud. So which also gives birth to a whole new realm of security in the cloud. For example, if I used to pen test a few years ago, the traditional architecture, the on-prem architecture that we used to follow, in a completely different way. Now, when I'm going to pen test to a server which is hosted on AWS or GCP or maybe Azure, my approach is going to be typically very different, because I know the basics or the infrastructure that is hosted there, at least from the patch perspective, is going to be right. Depending, of course, depending on the hosting model that the organization is using, but also there are significant more flaws that can be that can come into picture. Given that the cloud might not be configured correctly, given the configurations related to the network might not be correct, which was not the case earlier when everything was on-prem. So while cloud has added significant advantages in terms of ease of use and the cost benefits, it has also opened or rather expanded the attack surface. Giving a view from the penetration tester's perspective, the attack surface has radically improved. So where Pradeep sir also pointed out, there are new things that are coming to pictures. For example, UABA, where you're talking about behavior analytics and you're trying to understand if a particular user is acting as they would normally do, or there's an anomaly in their behavior, depending which on an alarm would be raised. So, or perimeterless security. COVID was one example where companies had to allow people sometimes to use their own personal devices, which we know, as a matter of fact, might not be as secure as a company provided hardened laptop or a desktop would be. So for people who are entering into the cyberspace right now, I think it's a wonderful time, because we're right now somewhere in the middle, in the hybrid environment, where part of the infrastructure of the company is still on-prem and part of it has moved to the cloud. So I think it's a beautiful time where a person wants to involve themselves into cybersecurity can get a view of both. With the eyes of the future, of course, where everything moves towards the cloud, most of it becomes encapsulated, and only a certain details need to be taken care of by the organization. But then again, that's where something can go wrong. The typical governance structure would remain the same, but of course there are certain tweaks that need to be taken care of before the organization moves to the cloud. So, yeah.
I think that really does make sense. And while a lot of panelists mentioned a lot about compliance, hardening, and a lot of, I mean, uh, there's so much to do for an organization to be secure. And however, while looking at the kind of questions that a lot of students had submitted for this panel discussion, I I did not see a lot about incident response. So we do understand compliance and hardening and all of the other things, but could you also throw a little light on uh, what kind of teams do we have for incident response, and what is the structure like? And because from an academic perspective, it'll be really good to take an industry insight on how the teams really look at incident response in real time, and what are the kind of different roles we have lined up there.
Arun, do you want to take up?
Yeah, so that's a separate field in itself, and I would like to, throw some insights, maybe give you some food for thought so that you can, search it out later for deeper understanding. But then how a typical MSS, maybe Rajat will also agree, MSS is organized. The incident response typically will be separate from the people who are actually monitoring incidents. And then when they actually triage is a term taken from hospitals. So when they triage and prioritize a particular incident, and let's take an example, and let's say that particular incident is creating a sub process in a particular, let's say, an operating system. And now with your incident response, this is a malicious process. It is a process which is eating up the bandwidth, the compute, and making the system slow. I'm taking a very small example. So now when you want to investigate and respond to this incident and this is now handed over to the incident response team, they see how this particular process was created through some sort of digital forensics as far as the computer, their operating system is concerned, and looking at what are the tools are available at hand, they will accordingly take decisions. So those decisions can be like isolating the particular operating. Just a second. Yeah, the particular endpoint, or killing that process through an additional tool that we may have at the system. Let's say if the organization has put in EDRs, so you can go ahead and kill that process. And let us say if we do not have EDR, we can take up manual processes wherein we can contact the device owner, contact the IT administrator to ask him to isolate. So that's the flow of one incident, how incident response can happen. And this can then relate to all the techniques that have been mentioned in the Mitre attack framework. Taking another example, let's say a malicious actor is scanning your system horizontally or vertically. So you have now, you got to know that the IP address which was scanning your network is so the IP address, now you've got the IP address which is malicious in nature. What the incident response team will do will actually take actions to block that on a firewall. That will be as simple as that. These are the kind of actions that you take as part of the incident response team, so that the occurrence of the incident is reduced, and we analyze how this came into being. Answering the third part of the question, how the teams are organized, depending on what is the load at your end, a typical size would be between 4 to 8 people. But then these people, for a smaller organization, these people will not be only with the skill set which is specific to operating system. They will have skill set ranging from application security. They will have skill set ranging from cloud security, operating system, and somebody from a network security perspective, like somebody who's experienced in firewall, IDS, IPS. So it's a combination of people, those who sit together, do some forensic analysis on an incident, and then respond accordingly.
All right.
And to add to what Arun has said, I mean, today the requirement is moved a step forward. Right now, everybody is wanting people that incident response should be automated. Now, no longer is the fact that you have the expectation is that an L1 would sit around and look at identify the incident, do the triaging of the incident, then go to the specific device, or if they have this. So there are multiple ways to that without going into the too much technicalities of this aspect. But the requirement these days is that every incident where there is a process to it should be automated and should be kind of taken into through a SOAR kind of an environment, right? And that is leaving aside and kind of in the initial process in itself is also allowing the team to focus primarily on threat hunting rather than reacting to an incident. So proactive process through which you could kind of identify and threat coming into the system, taking the necessary steps to be able to block it before it actually hits you, right? And so the threat intel, the threat information, the threat hunting, all of these actually are coming in the initial part of it, and kind of the incident response becomes an automated process that goes in a cyclic manner based on an identified incident, triaged incident, confirmed incident, then automatically put through a process of either an approval process before it goes into an automated process to execute the necessary activities to be able to block that particular incident. So I think it is a big subject in itself. A lot of interesting aspects
Yeah.
now are starting to come in. A lot of people are talking about threat intel. And threat intel is not necessarily
Mm.
just on the web, the underneath web or the dark web that we may call. There's a lot of intel that needs to come out through that as well. So it's a very, very interesting phase and shaping up very differently these days. So with a lot of proactive processes in taking precedence rather than a reactive model.
I think that gives a very comprehensive view of, I mean, your take on the incident response didn't only capture opportunities, but also insights on what is the kind of process that we're looking at when we talk about a real-time incident response. So, I think we've touched upon a lot of important topics in the security vertical. I would like to quickly turn to Mr. Rajat and ask him that as an alumni, since we have so many students joined in on the call today, would you like to give a little bit of input on what kind of opportunities does NU bring forward to bridge this kind of gap? And in fact, if you could also talk a little about the more upcoming research verticals that students should look at, Mr. Rajat?
Sure. So first of all, I think being graduated from NU, I was earlier a developer, and then I took the bold switch of turning towards security. So in its own very sweet way, it helped me a lot. So I think the courses that are taught right now at NU are very relevant to what is being used in the industry as well. So as Arga pointed out very, very rightly, that now SOC is divided into rather three parts. First is active threat hunting or threat intelligence. Then somebody is triaging those threats that are right now there or coming in a live fashion. And then the whole automation, the whole response bit is kind of automated depending on the flows that have been maintained in the SOAR tool. So I think that's something that we already are studying at our university as well. So that's a very, very positive point. So the way I see cybersecurity, and there are people who are much more experienced than me, and Arga sir, Arun sir, Pradeep sir, please feel free to add. The way I see this is cybersecurity can be divided into three verticals. One would be the area of security architecture, where the security architect is supposed to define the whole architecture or the roadmap or the plan for an organization to remain secure on the internet when they're operating there, or the whole structure of the organization, and ensure that every step or every technological advancement that they're making is also secure enough and cannot be attacked from outside or rather inside as well. The second vertical that I see is around consulting. A consultant is a typical catch-all guy who you would go to understand understand the various aspects of security, understand from them if particular standards are met or not, if things are being rightly implemented or not, and stuff like that. So this is the jack of all trades. The third vertical is where people turn towards active exploitation, or rather actively hunting for places where things would have gone wrong, which is also known as penetration testing, where you're letting someone attack your network or attack your environment to identify any flaws that might exist. Now, to top it all, it's sort of a pyramidal structure. So you have three things at the base, and while you progress in your career ahead, you probably someday want to be a CISO. A CISO is nothing but Chief Information Security Officer, where you would spearhead the security team, decide on the plans that an organization need to follow, or rather need to follow in order to remain resilient to cyber attacks that might have happened or that might take place in the future. So where all the aspects of DR, disaster recovery and stuff like that would come in. So that's how I see the area of cybersecurity. Now you, depending on your interest, could place yourself in either of these verticals and then grow forward from there. So that's what I did. So being a developer, I think it was fairly easy for me to take the penetration testing side because I knew the kind of errors or kind of things that developers typically miss that would help me exploit a particular vulnerability and get into the system. So that was my way of doing it. Somebody could be too much into standards, could be would want to proactively define a cybersecurity strategy for a firm. So that's something a cybersecurity security architect would choose. That's the other path. Now, talking about third aspect, research areas, I think there are plenty. One of the areas that I'm right now inclined towards is UABA. I think there's again end user behavior analytics. I think there's a lot to do. There's lots and lots to do with Microsoft and AWS playing their own roles. I think there are still areas that are unexplored. The other bit is where we haven't replaced penetration testers, to be very honest. All these tools like Qualys, Guard, Nessus, these are going to give you vulnerabilities, but those are pretty standard ones. How do you identify a vulnerability which is not coming because of a typical flaw in the code, something like SQL injection, but probably because of a business logic issue, where maybe one example could be maybe instead of validating a checksum while you're making the payment, while you're placing the order, everything is generated at the front end and then sent to the payment gateway just to collect the payment. So it's a bad design. So we haven't replaced the role of penetration testers completely. I mean, I understand that would never be the case, but all these tests that could have been done easily haven't been replaced yet. So that's one area again which needs to be looked into in order to improve these current security monitoring or security scanning tools that we have. So over to you, Argav sir, Pradeep sir, Arun sir.
Yeah, no, I think you captured quite a lot of stuff, and I think what I normally recommend to my team, the new joinees who come in from college grads, fresh out of college, is that come out with an open mind, an open book, because if you try to box yourself into a specific area, yes, the course curriculums give you a certain amount of ideas and certain amount of guidelines to what you follow. The interest comes when you actually do live activities and actually get into either in a live activity or a project or not, and start to kind of learn the trade of the tricks, or the tricks of the trade rather, and then try to kind of figure out what suits you. I mean, a lot of people have landed up from consulting. I mean, like Rajat said, I come primarily from infrastructure to a security. That gave me quite a lot of huge amount of exposure of how do I manage infrastructure security in itself, right? So all those things again there are influencers that would come across. There will people or your experiences through which you come through that will influence you. The projects that you do would influence you. End of the day, in a year or 2 years time frame, you start to kind of understand, okay, this is the area of my interest, right? And then you start to develop that area, and that's why you need to have, and the more that you run across all the verticals, it's a huge subject in itself, right? From consulting to implementation to operations, it's a huge subject. So you need to basically be able to get a feel of everything to be able to understand how and where it will kind of work out. The other aspect is also, when you talked about research, right? And we pushed quite a lot of our team members to do 0-day kind of vulnerability findings. A lot of people do it in our teams. That is a research in itself, because you maybe not the research per se, right? But then definitely it gives you a unique value proposition that for the organization and the individual, where you find a vulnerability in the wild, basically, and be able to kind of state that and register that in your name. That gives a big boost to the confidence of the individual as well. So yeah, I mean, there is a lot of things to do. Come with an open mind. The industry is going to accept you in open arms, because there is a lot of shortage of cybersecurity skilled people. But then you have to be ready to roll up these sleeves. It is not a white collar job. The
Yeah.
competition is huge. The competition is huge, and there is quite a lot of less percentage of people who actually land up into where they have come across, and that takes struggle, real struggle to be able to do that. To be able to qualify, you can, if you're lucky enough, you can get through here and there. But if you want to be called a qualified cybersecurity consultant or cybersecurity expert or SME, it takes time, it takes investment, it takes a lot of learning, a lot of studies also.
So I just want to add to Arga. Let me answer it in a very generic way rather than being very techy about it. 20 years ago, when I was in the network part of it, and the first offer came into cybersecurity. I didn't have any zero knowledge about what is the cyber security, what is internet, what is ABCD of that. So what I'm trying to say is that what Arga is saying is go with the open mind. Uh, I mean, when I started my career, there was a time when my organization asked me to get into consulting. So that's the time I started hearing about Big Fours in 2099, 2000, and we were competing against EY, PwC, Deloitte. I was with the local Indian company. We won against them, but it was the first consulting project. I went into that for 6 months and I got bored. After 6 months, I said, I will never do consulting again. Let me go back to the product side. So this is very important. What I want to say is that stick to fundamentals. I don't know today. I mean, each of the people here in the forum, they are exposed to more information because of the internet, because of the universities are giving them more practical exposure. So during the graduation period, more than what you want to do before you enter into the professional world. But still, my personal recommendation is that keep it very open. You may not like doing something after 2 years, and then you will say that I want to get into this. So fundamentals is very, very important. That will help you decide what you want to do. Today also, as Arun manages our SOC, the kind of profiles which we look at, the most fundamental things which we look at is someone who comes with the basics, who understands Windows and Unix forensics. I have seen people who don't know even the ABCD of Windows, and they apply for the job and then they don't know the forensics part of it. If I ask them anything around TCP/IP fundamentals, they go zero. So that's the thing which I wanted to communicate. I mean, we are talking a lot of big terms here, but then go down, go grounded, learn the basics, and then decide what you want to do, what you get into specialization kind of.
Thank you so much, Pradeep sir, for putting that point out. And I think we're ending on the correct note. I mean, all our panelists from Tata Advanced Systems, I mean, looking at the kind of experience you have had, and even Professor Bezvara, you have actually been the pioneers and you were there. I mean, you have been in the field in India when it was just starting out, and now it has grown massively. So you have seen it through the entire journey, and especially Mr. Rajat with his young and really insightful ideas. It has been great overall, but I would also request all our participants to send in any questions if they have. They can unmute themselves and speak up, or they can drop their questions on the chat. Uh, we don't have much time left till the session ends, so we can probably take one or two questions.
So I think there is one question already there in the chat. If you can take a look at it. Oh, sorry, it's come to me privately. I'm sorry.
Okay,
That's my bad. So I'll kind of, I think it's come from case Satvik. It's come to me directly. So I'll read the question and then try to answer them. Maybe other panelists can also help out. Is how do you think that cybersecurity affects the future of AI, IoT, ML, etc.? So I mean, cybersecurity uh, is an intake of AI, ML. I mean, the biggest benefits that have come across in cybersecurity is the introduction of AI and ML, because the because the process of learning a behavior pattern, and I think when they talked about UEBA, a classical example on UEBA, right? UEBA is nothing but you are understanding and user behavior patterns that been put into an AI engine or machine learning process in itself basically gives you a good amount of insight to what an individual kind of is expected to behave, or a standard pattern of the user's behavior versus an anomaly, right? And that gives quite a lot of benefits. So cybersecurity has been taking in AI and ML in big term, and been able to kind of utilize them into a lot of processes. When I talk about these automation processes in terms of incident response, or even for that matter of trying to analyze a user's behavior pattern, or for that matter an authentication process in itself, right? All of those, the AI/ML has been a lot of got in a lot of benefit to it. And IoT obviously is an extension of your device that was within the perimeters or in the cloud, now everywhere, right? Literally everywhere. Now, how do you kind of manage the security of that particular device in itself, that last mile device does not get compromised, is something that now will have to be kind of taken into account with respect to how you can kind of address the security challenges through it. So yeah, I mean, there's lot. I mean, cybersecurity had benefited quite a lot from AI and NSA. Other panelists, I'll leave it to you for any comments.
So I just want to add up to what Arga was saying, that AI and ML, and I'll give you the very practical usage of AI ML. We recently, data security is of utmost importance, and most of the customers are today struggling with the data protection piece of it. They have not been able to uh, classify the information, though they have data protection mechanisms. There are a lot of new cybersecurity startups are coming out with the AI, ML built in, and they are understanding the data, the sensitivity of the data. Uh, I heard about the personal data protection part of it. There are tools which are coming out with built-in AI, which is helping identify the huge pool of data, both in the cloud and on-prem, wherever the data is, and in helping customers with the rightful classification and applying the protection mechanisms on the types of data which gets detected. So there are many use cases which are coming up, and AI is definitely helping the cybersecurity industry.
I think there's a question to me. Do we have time to take that up?
Yes, so sure.
Okay. I'll try to be brief as possible. So the question is how cybersecurity may help to raise the employment and business in rural areas. What is your suggestions if someone would like to go for consultancy for intermediate schools and panchayats? Okay, that's a very interesting, and because of the way internet is permeating to the last mile, and the government taking out so many initiatives in terms of e-governance up to the village level. I think a very strong milestone to start consultancy for these areas is the establishment of the Personal Data Protection Act, wherein every personally identifiable information will have to be protected by these institutions, whether small, medium, or large, and whether they operate on a countryside or they operate in mainland. So that is the point where I think Yadvir, you can pick up things there and how you can consult them on personal data protection. Coming to some technical parts of it, if let's suppose a school wants to set up their network infrastructure, and you could then become the consultant in terms of providing security to, like, the current day scenario wherein everybody is doing classes through Zoom or online meetings. You could suggest them how a secure meeting can be held and what are the parameters that people can look at while they set up the secure infrastructure, while extending connectivity to kids and teachers in their homes. That will be my short answer. I think I can take that offline if you email me as well.
There is one last question from Lalit saying how quantum encryption technology can help us to improve our security, and is it going to be hack proof? So I think although there are a lot of questions popping up on the chat, unfortunately this is the last question that we will be able to take. Since we don't have much time left. And after that, we can move to the closing comments from all the panelists. So the question on the table is how quantum encryption technology can help us improve our security.
Sure.
Yeah, good. That's the good.
Are you able to hear?
Go ahead.
Okay. So the idea of quantum encryption that has come about mainly because of the perceived insecurities of the existing RSA system, right? So the prime factorization, which is the basis for RSA encryption, has so there are quantum algorithms that can actually break it in polynomial time. So but that is just in theory at this point. There is no and that too. The existence of an algorithm is there, but the actual algorithm implementation does not exist. So it doesn't work for large keys beyond some 500 bits or something. So right now the RSA systems are using 2048 and they might even go higher as well. So the quantum encryption is something that is, if you are looking at it as a replacement for RSA, that is the way you are looking at it. But there are many post RSA kind of systems or post quantum cryptographic algorithms out there that can equally be as good as RSM can also be safe against any quantum level hacking or cryptanalysis techniques. So if and when quantum encryption actually becomes quantum encryption come down, if and when we have good enough software to run on them, as we know that running a good operating system is a major problem. You still need to have a good system level resource management to run these things. So if and when they actually get connected to the internet, I guess then we can actually think about using quantum encryption as a system for real applications. Until then, we're probably stuck with what we have right now.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope, Lalit, that answered your question. And I would now request the other four panelists to give any closing remarks if they would like to.
Yeah, I think let me then start off.
Sure,
The my only submission to the forum here and the students and who are listening to us today. Now, first of all, thank you for inviting us. I didn't get the chance to kind of appreciate the fact that you guys took time to invite us into this particular discussion. It's always a pleasure to talk to the budding and upcoming aspiring cybersecurity professionals. And I'm very glad that we got a chance to speak to them, though we couldn't see any faces. I mean, but at least I hope we made some sense to them. But anyway, so my only submission to this entire team that's listening to us is that this is a very, very interesting field, and is not going to kind of die away soon. The challenges keep cropping up, the complexities keep cropping up, and the day to day, every day is a new challenge for us, and so it will be for you when you now take on to this profession. So enjoy the fact, and it's not always you get success, but the fact is that in the process you learn quite a lot of things, and that learning, the first 5 6 years are the formative years, which I keep harping on to my younger team members, is that no, the first 5 years are your formative years. That is where you build your career, you build your personality, you build your direction, and that is when then you can then start to focus on and specialize on. So believe in yourself. Failures will come. I'll be 100% transparent to that. There will be a lot of rejections as well, but that should not stop you. That should make you more focused and more concentrated in trying to make yourself valuable to the industry. And that can only be done, as we've said, with very good basics. So learn your basics very well. That is important. Thank you.
I just want to add on to what I'm a man of few words. I'm just saying, sky's the limit for cybersecurity. I mean, it's just a start. It's just the beginning. We have a shortage of talent and I mean, huge dearth of opportunity in cybersecurity. Anyone who's trying to build their career from the technology perspective is, I mean, it's a wonderful field to be in. Right? Thank you. I hope, as Arga said, I hope the next time the session will have a kind of cyber capacity where we could see everyone's faces, and it could have been more video interactive session. But then, yes, I just wanted to have the feel of the people who are listening to us. They are seeing our faces. We don't know who's listening and what kind of skills they are bringing today. So maybe next time we'll have that. Thank you so much.
Quickly want to convey my thanks to all the people who took efforts to invite us on this panel. And like Arga said, I hope we all together made some sense and gave you enough food for thought to discover and explore more. I would like to just end this with just imagine the Internet of Things, and you can imagine the type of security they would need. So like Pradeep said, sky is the limit and cloud is the limit, right? Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting us over. To all the people who are just about to graduate, and I've been recently very close to the other side. So the first things, as Arga sir pointed out, get the basics right. That's something. Once you have the foundations right and strong, that's something that you will be able to build your building upon. So that's the first and the most important thing. Basis that, never feel shy from exploring. It's okay if you don't land the spot that you wanted to land in the first place. Be persistent. I think that's what is the key in cybersecurity. Being persistent everywhere is the key. So keep learning. Be persistent. Failures are going to come. Don't put yourself down or push yourself so too hard on that, because that's okay. And then I think sky's the limit again, and you all will bloom. So thank you so much for inviting us over. Over to you, Sanya.
Thank you so much once again to all the panelists. I think it has been a very exuberant discussion, and we have touched upon a lot of points. Like Arun sir said, food for thought. We really have a lot of things, a lot of new things that we got to know, and it has been a very exciting discussion. I think on behalf of the student community, we would like to we would really love to thank you. And like Pradeep sir said, we really hope that we'll see you next time on campus and not on a Zoom call. So we're looking forward to it. And thank you so much for your time. And insights on so many things in the cybersecurity vertical that you've enlightened us with. Thank you so much, and have a great evening. And thank you so much to all the participants who attended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanya.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
Thank you.